Ahsama returns. The queen's destiny awaits. An African queen in the depths of despair, kneeling in the ruins of her once glorious palace. Queen Ahsama, dressed in tattered, dark African regal attire, her golden crown now worn and cracked, reflects the weight of her curse and arrogance. Her deep ebony skin is marked by signs of suffering, and her striking blue eyes, once filled with power, now reflect sorrow and regret. The ruins of her grand African kingdom stand behind her, decorated with sacred carvings with African symbols. Now shadowed and cracked, the air is heavy with the weight of her mistakes, and the once vibrant African drums have fallen silent. The sun sets low, casting long shadows over her as she faces the consequences of her actions, a fallen queen burdened by her pride. The surrounding village is empty, symbolizing the isolation caused by her downfall. This scene embodies the moment of humility and reflection, the point where Ahsama confronts the consequences of her arrogance. Queen Ahsama walks slowly through the darkened African village of Kasaba, her golden African dress with intricate tribal patterns shimmering faintly under the dim glow of the crescent moon. The once lively village is now eerily silent, its mud huts with thatched roofs abandoned, doors left open as if the people had fled in fear. The air is heavy, filled with the echoes of past voices, and the faint whispers of the ancestors seem to drift through the wind. The walls of the temple are covered in ancient African carvings and spiritual symbols, with dim torchlight flickering over ancestral statues. The air is thick with the scent of burning herbs, and a soft drumbeat echoes. Ahsama's hands tremble as she bows her head in repentance, preparing for the ancestral ritual to cleanse her soul. Ahsama returns. The queen's destiny awaits. The curse is broken. After suffering in isolation, Ahsama finally saw the truth. Her downfall was not fate, but her own doing. With genuine repentance, she sought the help of the old crone who had once warned her of this fate. Queen Ahsama, a stunning young woman, kneels before the old crone, pleading for forgiveness. The old woman, seeing Ahsama's sincerity, agreed to perform the sacred ancestral rituals. Deep in the heart of the ancient temple, under the watchful eyes of the spirits, the rituals began. Drums echoed in the night. The scent of burning herbs filled the air, and chants of old incantations merged with the howling wind. The power of the ancestors awakened, and the curse was lifted. Ahsama collapsed to the temple floor as the curse left her body exhausted. But as she opened her striking blue eyes, they were no longer clouded with darkness. She had been cleansed, both physically and spiritually, the price of disobedience. But justice had to be served. The people still whispered about the curse that had possessed Ahsama and the fate of those who disobeyed the sacred traditions. No one can escape reality. The old crone declared, standing beside Ahsama. The ancestors had spoken. Those who rejected the old ways and brought ruin to Kasava had faced their fate through the power of the curse. Their disappearance was a warning to all. The message was clear: honor the past or suffer the consequences. The return of the queen, with her soul restored, Ahsama stood before her people once more, not as a cursed ruler, but as a true queen, reborn with wisdom and humility. She vowed to correct the past and bring peace, harmony, and prosperity back to Kasava. The drums of celebration sounded once more. The land flourished and trade returned. Trust in the queen was restored. Ahsama rebuilt her kingdom, not with power, but with respect for her people and the traditions of their ancestors. The villagers returned no longer afraid. At the peak of the curse, the once thriving village of Kasava had become a ghost town. Fear gripped the land. Villagers fled to neighboring settlements. afraid of their own queen, whispering about her dark transformation. But after Ahsama's redemption, word spread that the curse had been lifted. The old crone had performed the sacred ancestral rituals, and Ahsama had been freed from darkness. Slowly, one by one, the villagers returned home, no longer afraid that their queen would doom them. Families reunited. Abandoned mud huts with thatched roofs were once again filled with warmth and life. The streets, once silent, echoed with laughter and joy. Their queen had returned to them, not as a monster, but as a wise and just ruler, ready to rebuild what was lost. Cassava at peace with justice restored and traditions upheld, peace finally reigned in Cassava. The people trusted their queen, the land flourished, and the spirits of the ancestors watched over them once more. Queen Ahsama had fallen and risen, but now she was stronger than ever. Her story would be told for generations, a tale of wisdom, redemption, and the unbreakable bond between the living and the ancestors. The land flourished, and trade returned. When Ahsama was cursed, crops withered, rivers dried up, and livestock perished. The once fertile lands of Cassava became barren, reflecting the queen's suffering. With no food or wealth, trade came to a halt, and Cassava became a forgotten village. But with Ahsama's redemption, the balance of nature was restored. The land healed, rains returned, crops grew tall, and the earth was once again rich with harvest. Farmers worked together, rebuilding farmlands and tending to cattle that had returned from hiding. Traders from distant lands came back to Cassava, bringing textiles, spices, and treasures, eager to do business once more. Cassava, once in ruins, was now a thriving center of trade and prosperity. Trust in the queen was restored. When Ahsama ignored the prophecy and abandoned her traditions, her people lost faith in her. She had once been their beloved leader, but her arrogance led to destruction. However, after her repentance and transformation, the villagers saw a new Ahsama, a queen who had learned from her mistakes and now valued the wisdom of her ancestors. The people spoke of her bravery in facing her curse and her wisdom in seeking redemption. Warriors swore allegiance to her once again, promising to protect the rightful ruler of Cassava. Families who had once feared her now welcomed her back as their true leader. The queen had proven herself and trust was restored. Ahsama rebuilt her. Kingdom Ahsama knew that true leadership was not about power, but about serving her people. With her strength restored, she restored her castle, decorating it with ancestral African motifs, intricate sculptures, and sacred symbols to honor the spirits that saved her. She ordered the rebuilding of homes, ensuring that every family had shelter and security. She established new laws, ensuring that Cassava would never fall into darkness again. She revived cultural festivals, making sure that the traditions of her ancestors would always be remembered. Through her wisdom and leadership, Cassava became stronger than ever. The grand offering ceremony, to honor her redemption and show gratitude to the spirit. Ahsama organized the grand offering day at the castle. The castle, once shadowed by darkness, was now a place of beauty and culture, adorned with African designs, sacred ancestral sculptures, and rich colorful patterns. The crowds arrived from all lands, wearing bright African batik fabrics in red, gold, blue, and green. Women, men, and children lined up, bringing offerings of fruits, grains, and sacred artifacts, all while singing and dancing in joy. The air was filled with happiness, rhythm, and unity, a powerful symbol that Cassava had been restored. The drums. Ohof's celebration sounded once more. In African traditions, drums are the heartbeat of a community. They announce victory, unity, and spiritual awakening. During Ahsama's curse, the drums of Cassava fell silent, reflecting the darkness that had overtaken the village. But as the people returned and the fear disappeared, the drums roared back to life, signaling renewal and celebration. Skilled drummers gathered in the village center, their hands striking the stretched hides, creating rhythms that awakened the ancestors. Women dressed in bright traditional African batik fabrics danced to the beats, their movements filled with joy and gratitude. The voices of men, women, and children merged in songs of praise, rejoicing in the return of their queen and the restoration of peace. For the first time in many years, Cassava felt alive again. The queen's destiny had finally been fulfilled. Ahsama's journey had been one of fall and redemption. From greatness to downfall, from curse to salvation, she had learned that true power lies not in ruling with force, but in leading with wisdom and respect for one's roots. Great transformation, a tale that will be passed down through generations as a lesson in wisdom, resilience, and leadership. Her story is not just about power, but about self-discovery, redemption, and the true meaning of being a ruler. She had faced her mistakes and corrected them. She had reunited her people and rebuilt her kingdom. She had restored peace, prosperity, and justice. As she stood on the balcony of her castle, looking over the flourishing village, she knew her destiny was fulfilled. The name of Queen Ahsama would be remembered for generations, not as a cursed ruler, but as the queen who fell, learned, and rose again, stronger than ever. From greatness to downfall, Ahsama was once a queen of immense potential, but her arrogance and ignorance of tradition led to her downfall. She believed that she could defy the wisdom of her ancestors, dismissing the sacred teachings that had guided her people for centuries. Because of her actions, she was cursed, stripped of her power, and left in isolation and suffering. The once thriving African village of Cassava was abandoned, its people scattered in fear, and its once fertile lands turned barren. The spirits of the ancestors who had once blessed her reign turned away from her, leaving her lost and alone. From curse to redemption. However, Ahsama's fate was not sealed in darkness. Through suffering and reflection, she realized that true power was never in force or control, but in wisdom, humility, and respect for her roots. She understood that she had to right her wrongs and seek the forgiveness of the ancestors. With genuine repentance in her heart, she turned to the old crone, the very woman who had once warned her of this fate. Through a sacred ancestral ritual, Ahsama was cleansed and the curse was lifted. But breaking the curse alone was not enough. She had to prove herself worthy of her people's trust once more. With her soul restored, Ahsama did not return to rule out of entitlement, but with wisdom and renewed purpose. She set out to correct the past and bring her people together again. She reunited the villagers, calling them back from the places where they had fled in fear. She rebuilt the village of Cassava, restoring the homes, the marketplace, and the sacred temple where the spirits of the ancestors resided. She restored justice, ensuring that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. She brought prosperity, reviving the farmlands, trade, roots, and the once barren lands that were now full of life again. No longer a queen who ruled with pride and power, Ahsama led with wisdom and humility, earning the respect and devotion of her people. Looking the flourishing village of Cassava, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The baobab tree, standing tall in the heart of the village, symbolized her own growth and transformation. But now she was a leader reborn, stronger, wiser, and more connected to her people than ever before. Her name would be remembered for generations, not as the queen who fell, but as the queen who rose again, wiser and greater than before. Her story would be told in fireside tales, passed from elders to children, a lesson in the power of wisdom, humility, and redemption. Her spirit would live on forever, blessed by the ancestors, watching over Cassava for all eternity. Her destiny had been fulfilled, not through force, but through the love and loyalty of her people. This is the true legacy of Queen Ahsama, the queen who fell, learned, and rose again, stronger than ever. The queen's destiny had finally been fulfilled. Her story was no longer a warning. It was a legend.